Anyway.
Come out and say hello. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. So, I'm Trent Austin. I own Austin Custom Brass, and we're so very happy. Oh yeah, we're all hired. We are so happy, and for everybody tuning in online, thanks for taking your time, and we really appreciate you coming. It is such a treat, and hey, Stan, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
It is just an honor and treat. I don't have many trumpet heroes, and I'm going to tell Roger this. I've never told Roger this. I'm always a little intimidated to talk to Roger at shows and things because I just like, Roger is such a huge idol of mine. When I think of a quintessential commercial trumpet sound, Roger comes to mind. So I'm just, it's such an honor and a privilege to have you here to, give so much beautiful wisdom to everybody here. Thanks so much to Phil Carnevale and XO Brass for hosting today's event. And without further ado, you don't want to hear me talk, the amazing Roger Ingram. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Trent for having me here, and I want to thank Jupiter XO Brass for arranging this whole event. And this is the third clinic I've done here in 2 days. And a couple of the clinics, one was for the entire music student body of a school, and so I wasn't able to talk about trumpet-specific things because I didn't want to bore all the people who played the other instruments. And the second clinic yesterday was a mix of about half and half. I was looking forward to today because I can talk about some specific things that might be able to help you with your playing. And I think it would be appropriate to start off with the warm-up. Since it's kind of early, I did a lot of playing yesterday. My wife and I traveled from Chicago to Kansas City here. We've been in a hotel, and before we got in the car on Thursday to drive here, I've just been working my butt off in Chicago. I work every day, you know. I've been playing lead trumpet with the Chicago Jazz Orchestra since April, and I play lead trumpet with the New Standard Jazz Orchestra. I play lead trumpet with the Joshua Jern Jazz Orchestra. I play lead with the Pete Elman Big Band. I do a lot of gigs with the Shout Section Big Band and Bill Bynes Big Band. There's a lot of big bands there, and I'm playing lead on most of them, you know. And but I just finished doing a run of Dream Girls at the Paramount Theater in Aurora. Joshua Jern was the main player on that Broadway show, and he was subbing out of 3 shows a week, so it was great. I got to go in and just do 3 shows a week. Not enough shows to really get sick of it, and so I did the entire run. Earlier this year, I did a run of Titanic, so I do a lot of Broadway shows. There's 2 albums that I recorded in Chicago last year that are up for Grammys this year. I played lead on the entire Mark Tremonti Sings Frank Sinatra album. It's up for some Grammys. And I played lead on an album called The 12 Grooves of Christmas by the Pete Elman Big Band, produced by Kerry Dedman. And that's a great album. So I'm just telling you this to give you an idea of what I do. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and then I lived in New York for about 15 years. And I was touring with Harry Connick Jr. for 20 years. I toured with Ray Charles for a number of years. I toured with Maynard Ferguson. I toured with Woody Herman. I toured with Paul Anka. I toured with Tom Jones in the 70s for about 6 years. So I finally met my wife, Victoria, who's sitting right here. And in fact, she brought some of the books, if anybody would like to get a book. And and we make all our trips because she loves these road trips because she loves to travel. I mean, I've done enough traveling, you know. So we finally got to get away from Chicago, and it's kind of a relief, you know. And we get to stay in a hotel and see everything and meet the nice people of Kansas City. And this is a beautiful city. So here I am, and I do a lot of private teaching, and I designed this trumpet in 2009. I contributed to the design of this trumpet. This is the Exobrass 1600i, and they put the I in the model number because it's my namesake. It's for Ingram, you know. So this is the Exobrass. It's a medium bore 453 uniform bore trumpet, and I've been using it since for about 13 years. And so, and it's a great all-around horn. It serves its purpose well in the studio and in the theater and on live performances. So I'm very happy with this. And so there you go. How many people can do that? Right? All right. Everybody able to do that? This is something I learned from Bobby Shue. I started studying with Bobby Shue. Was one of my many teachers. He was pretty much my main teacher, and I don't have enough time to even talk about all the great things Bobby Shue did for me. But one very valuable thing he showed me is something that any trumpet player can do who plays in any style and is associated with any genre and of any age and any level. You can do this warm-up. It's a beautiful warm-up, and I want to do it because I haven't really warmed up yet today. And when you talk about warm-up, you have to realize that that term comes from the world of athletics. It means literally raising the temperature of a particular muscle or a group of muscles that pertain to you executing a certain endeavor. Like, for instance, a football player has a different warm-up than a baseball player has because they're concentrating on a different set of muscles. They want to bring attention to that set of muscles to increase the blood flow to that set of muscles, which warms the muscle, all right? So you're putting attention on a certain area of your body to increase the blood flow there. A tennis player has a different warm-up than a track runner, right? You understand. A tennis player has a different warm-up than a golfer. So, because we play wind instruments, right? I mean, there's the brass section and there's the woodwind section, but we all operate under the banner of wind players. We all play wind instruments. So what do? We actually become human air compressors. We start using our air as a tool. So it means you have to get control over it. Now, nobody has to teach you how to breathe when you're born. And in the old days, I suppose, the doctor would give the newborn a little swat on the fanny and start crying and start breathing. I don't know if they do that anymore. But you understand what I'm saying. But so no one has to teach you how to just sit here like this. And did anybody ever have to teach you how to breathe? No. But if you want to use your air control as a tool to play a musical instrument, then you need some advice on how to approach doing that so you can use your air in the most efficient manner. And with that said, I have to say that the only natural instrument there is the human voice, right? Now, if you were to sing that, pay attention to what you're doing with your body. Can everybody match this note for me? All right, let's do it. Try it. Let's go to the octave. Now let's go up there and then go back down to the octave underneath where we started. air. You can't use a lot of air down there, right? That's basically what happens when you play your instrument. How many people have heard sing when you play? And your beginning teachers, sing when you play, right? When I play lead trumpet, I'm like, there's no falsetto. There's no falsetto with me. Okay? I'm singing full bore. Everybody matches the note. Now sing that triad like you're a lead trumpet player. That'll give you an idea of what we do when we play lead trumpet or play a brass instrument. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. It's the usage of that air and not pinching. When you start pinching your aperture, that's when you go into a falsetto. You don't want that on the bandstand with the big band. You'll get buried. You want you want to put it out there because you're the lead trumpet player. You're running the band, phrasing, pitch, dynamics, time with the drummer. You run the band. It's a huge responsibility. It's not all about playing high notes. So let's go back to the warm-up. We're human air compressors when we play this instrument. You go, when you blow it out with a little bit of force or a lot of force or a small amount of force depending on the dynamic and the range you're performing in. So let's all take a nice breath. Nice, full, relaxed breath and blow it out with a little bit of force, like go ahead, keep on doing it 5 or 6 times. Now, when you take that breath, that normal breath, at the last part of your inhalation, while still taking in air, lift your shoulders, raise your shoulders. Now watch, do this. Okay? That's the beginning of getting the feel of the yoga breath, or what Bobby Shu refers to as the wedge breath. Okay? Let's do it again. Okay, that's the first step of the warm-up. We're getting our body going first before you even bring the horn into it. Remember, a warm-up is not practicing. A warm-up is warming up. You gotta know when the warm-up turns into practicing. And at that point, if I'm on my way getting ready to go to a gig, that's where I stop. Because in the words of Maynard Ferguson, I asked him about that. He said, and man, you know, I like to bring all my energy up onto the bandstand, man, and yeah. That's what Maynard used to say. And Bobby Shu also, he said, you gotta know when a warm-up stops being a warm-up and it becomes practice. And if you got a heavy gig, go to the gig. You're warming up your body. And it starts with your body. You don't warm up the horn, you warm up you. The horn the horn is an inanimate object. And by the way, we didn't come out of the womb with little trumpets. We're not even supposed to be doing this. You know, the lips were not designed to have a circular piece of brass pressing against them for hours and hours at a time. No wonder people have problems playing these things. We're not even supposed to be doing this. Like I said, the only natural instrument is the human voice, you know? And singers rule, at best. When people say, sing when you play, at best, as instrumentalists, we're trying to emulate singers, right? And when we go work in an orchestra or a big band, the conductor or the big band leader is usually telling you what to do. When I worked for a lot of singers, and I've worked for a lot of singers, Paul Linka, Ray Charles, Tom Jones, Harry Connick Jr., Donna Summer, a whole bunch of people, they tell the conductor what to do, right? They rule. I would say 99% of the huge pop stars out there making big bank are vocalists. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Right? So, we all made a mistake to begin with by not being vocalists, right? So, but there was something about the trumpet that really attracted me. There's something about the sound of this instrument that I really gravitated to. But you have to start at least embracing the idea of being a vocalist. And if you're shy to sing, get over it. Because if you're shy to sing, you're going to be shy to play your instrument. Get out there and start singing. I'm not a singer, but I can go, oh, da 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 da. That's the way I play lead trumpet. So when you're walking out to Forest Preserve, or if you're out in the fields or in the shower, start singing and try to sing in tune, all right? Because that's kind of what's going on as an instrumentalist, okay? So let's get back to the warm-up. Let's take those breaths again. Lift your shoulders up while still taking in air on the last step of the inhalation. Watch. It adds leverage to your ability to create internal compression, all right? Having that little shoulder lift works wonders. If you're an orchestral player and you only play up to a high D or a high E, you can get away with not doing the yoga breath. But if you're a lead trumpet player and you're standing in front of Count Basie's lead book or Harry Connick Jr.'s lead book and there's a lot of stuff written above a high G, you probably would benefit from adding that one step to your inhalation. Okay, so think about it, all right? The yoga breath is explained in this book in detail. That portion of the book, before I published this book, I had it approved by Bobby Shu himself. Because if I had described it incorrectly, I would be hearing about it till the day I die, believe me. If any of you met Bobby Shu, he's a very honest person and he doesn't mince words. So, the yoga breath and why it's a good breath and it's where it came from and how it works is all written in that book. This is just a textbook, there's no exercises here. Okay, so anyway, let's get back to this warm-up. Okay, the next step is, now, if a football player has a warm-up for what he does, and a baseball player has a warm-up for what he does, and a track runner has a warm-up for what she does, and a tennis player has a warm-up for what she does, what muscles, as a brass player, as this human air compressor, what muscles do you think we need to put attention on before playing a session or a concert or something, right? The family of muscles that surround the abdomen and the diaphragm, the intercostal muscles between your ribs, the lower, I should pay more attention when I read Gray's Anatomy. These lower muscles here, right? Does anybody know the name of these lower muscles here? Anyway, these muscles too. And the family of muscles that surround the abdomen and the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles between the ribs. So what you want to do, and I used to watch Maynard do it, try this. Let's get our muscles warmed up. Start moving a little bit. It's just something anybody can do, and it's so simple you would almost think, well, that doesn't mean anything. It's not complicated or difficult to understand. Why is that so special? Because it's easy, and it actually works. Something doesn't have to be complicated and hard to understand to be effective. Okay, look at this. Isn't that easy? How's that for a warm-up? So basically, I've had you do this and that, right? Now, this arm and this shoulder gets tired because 2-hour concert, you're holding this thing. After a while, and you're going, it can start tightening up, right? So what you want to do is loosen up those muscles and go like this and go like that. Like that. This is warming up to play a brass instrument or trumpet, trombone, tuba, French horn, euphonium, anything. You just want to do this. And it only takes a few seconds for each little thing. And I like to do this, you know. As you get older, you might start having issues with your tendons and things, you know. So you go like that. And it's like, you know, and during all of this, you're starting to focus. You're starting to think about what you're doing. Before you even pick up your instrument, you're getting ready for it and warming up, okay? Now, here's the next step. It's these muscles here, all right? How many people have watched films of Maynard Ferguson playing the trumpet and interviews? You notice how he's always going like this? You notice that? Well, it comes from this exercise. It's called the lion. It's a hatha yoga exercise, and it stretches the muscles of his face, in your face, and he was constantly doing it. You stick your tongue out as far as you can, you open your mouth as wide as you can, and you open your eyes as wide as you can, and you sit here and you count up to 10. I'll do it for you.
Keep it better on the line, Steve.
And it feels great. Try it. And you know, if you're embarrassed to sing, you're really going to be embarrassed. And obviously, I'm not embarrassed to do anything, right? Because, like I said, this is a weird instrument. It's a man-made thing. I'm actually making a living playing this thing, so I'm not shy to do this. And Maynard was constantly doing it. He was like, yeah, man, and wow, and I remember the Chicago Cubs, man, and yeah. And he was always doing that. He was a wonderful guy, real smart guy too, all right? But he was very gregarious, and he had a very unique personality, and I miss him, and I loved him, and I was on his band. I did 3 albums with that band. I was able to hang with him, and it was quite a wonderful, enlightening experience, but he used to do this thing called the lion, so I want you to try it, all right? Just do it together. How does that feel? It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Should you feel a soreness at all, like stretching out in the jaw?
Not sore, just a nice stretching feeling. All right, so I do that. And that's not something Bobby Shue told me about. That was something Maynard told me about, okay? But what Bobby Shue did tell me about for the warm-up is the next step. And we go like this, and this all can, I'm gonna take a half an hour to explain this to you, but it can all happen within about 7 minutes. And then you're warmed up. And the beauty of it is that half of it I can do in the car on the way to the gig, right? I get weird looks when I'm driving, I'm like, but you know, it's like, considering all the other things that are happening in our society, I think that's the least of anybody's problem. All right, so now, the next step is put your hands here. Don't cover your mouth, but on the side of your cheek. Press in a little bit. Take that same breath we were taking and go like this. Take that same breath we were taking. All right. Now that combined with the lion, the hatha yoga exercise, how does that feel? It can do you no harm, no matter what level of player you are, no matter what kind of player you are, no matter what age you are. As a brass player, this works for everybody, and it's wonderful. Now, put your hand on just one side, all right? And do the same thing. Take that same nice big breath and raise your shoulders at the end of the inhalation and do this. So now we're concentrating on this side of the face, aren't we? Go ahead, make the noise. Let me hear it a little louder. All right, now switch hands. Do the same thing. All right, now up to now, that portion of the warm-up serves as your warm down as well. When you're finished doing a gig, that serves as my warm down, all right? And you can do it between tunes because it revives your lips, it brings blood back in. If you feel yourself starting to get tired, you can do it without your hands too. You can just go, try it without your hands. That same nice big breath. Remember, this is a wind instrument. You have to use your air. All right, you can do that between tunes. If one tune was really, you know, wow, that was a heavy blow. What's up next? All right, you know, and that kind of makes you feel better. All right, now, this is the next step in a warm-up. Free buzzing, all right? And I've heard people on some of these trumpet forums argue about free buzzing. Free buzzing is an isometric exercise. It has nothing to do with what goes inside the mouthpiece cup when you're playing the instrument. Now, depending on a person's dental formation, with some people, it is the exact position they're in when they play. Some people, it's not. With me, it's not. I have a big overbite, see? But when I play, I move my jaw forward so I'm even, right? But when I free buzz in my downstream overbite position. So my free buzz is going like this. What I'm saying is, football players and baseball players, when they're in training, they do push-ups and sit-ups because it benefits what they do on the field. But when they're on the field, you don't see them doing push-ups and sit-ups. It's an isometric exercise that benefits brass playing, and it helps you get in shape. It helps you get back into shape. It helps you maintain your strength in your corners here. So it's a great thing to do. It has nothing to do with what goes inside that cup, okay? So I want everybody to do it. Take that same breath you were taking before and try it. Just try to get one note. All right, let's do it again. Take in that same breath. All right. Try that same triad that we were singing, okay? Do it again. Go down a half step. Back where we began. All right, now after you finish that, go back to flapping. Go ahead. Put your hands on the side of your mouth. All right, now how do you feel so far? Do you feel like you're getting ready to actually play this thing? All right, the next step for the warm-up is let's bring the mouthpiece into play. You all got your mouthpieces? Bring your mouthpiece?
Yep.
Are you a trumpet player? All right. Do you have a mouthpiece you can borrow?
Eric. Yep.
Javon, are you on like a 3 approximately?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right. All right, now take your mouthpiece, and it's probably cold.
Yeah, anybody else need a mouthpiece?
And for those who have your mouthpiece out, just set it on your lips where you usually do when you play, and just set it there. Find your spot. Now, there's been so many books written about embouchure placement and how to set your chops. There's a lot of things called the textbook. Oh, he has a textbook embouchure setting. It's like, you gotta realize that Arbin and Clark and all those, they were just people like us. They were just guys, you know. And they were great teachers, but, you know, they had their theory about where the mouthpiece should be placed. I like to try to live within the parameters of what I was taught, but because of different muscle formations and different thicknesses of lips and the different, you know, jaw structure, everybody within the parameters of how you're supposed to set your chops, you find your own spot. It's like a fingerprint, you know. We all have our own spot. So this step of the warm-up, just put it up there. Find your spot. And just let the mouthpiece get warm. Let it get a little bit warm. And if you're into cooking, you know what a meat tenderizer is? That little metal mallet that you hit beef and chicken and pork with. This is like a meat tenderizer. because your body's muscle memory is recognizing this, and it starts to soften up a little bit. You just put it up there and let it warm up, and now you're getting ready, okay? All right. I used to see Maynard Ferguson. He used to, on the way to the venue, he'd just sit there on the bus with his mouthpiece. And he'd be talking to the road manager. He said, Ed, and get me another glass of champagne. But he'd have his mouthpiece up there. He was letting his body recognize this, because this is a foreign object. Like I said, we're not supposed to be doing this. We didn't come out of the womb with little trumpets. All right? So this is a man-made thing. So now he got it up there, right? Now, let's take in that same breath and buzz your mouthpiece. Can you all match it? Let's see how good your ears are. Can you match the note I'm playing? All right, now let's do those triads again. The same triads we were doing when we were free buzzing. Maybe we're getting ready to play. How do you feel? This beat's rolling out of bed and putting a cold horn up to your face. It's like trying to play a Clifford Brown solo, doesn't it? It's like a little bit of preparation, and it's just simple things, real simple things, and it applies to any brass player at any age and any level. All right, let's bring the horn into it. How many got your horns with you? Did you bring your trumpet? Okay.
We got trumpets. Look at all those trumpets right next to you. So.
You want to? What's your name?
Javon.
Javar?
Javon.
Javon.
Javon?
I'll get the trumpet.
Okay, cool. Now everybody else who brought your horn, put your mouthpiece in it, and we're going to actually play a note on the instrument. All right? What we want to do is, personally, I feel that a second line G is about the easiest note to play on a trumpet. It was the first note that came out of the horn when I put the horn up. When I was 8 years old and I put the horn up, the second line G just flew right out of there, right? So, this is what I do. bend the note sharp, and I intentionally bend it flat, and I go sharp, flat, sharp, flat, sharp, flat, until I come to what I feel is the middle, the core of the note. And I do a maintenance check on myself every single time I pick up the horn at the beginning of the day to see where my center is. So, and this will prevent me from playing pinched or writing the high end of my partials all day. It'll keep me from playing too open and writing the low end of my partials all day, and it will prevent you from playing pinched and sharp. See how I found the middle of the note? Lynn Nicholson told me about doing that, and then Bobby Shue told me about doing that. How many people teach trumpet? How many students come in with this kind of a sound? Their teeth are together and they're too pinched. They'll never ever be able to ascend into the upper register when they have that kind of a setting in the mid register. The mid register is the launching pad for the upper register. So when you warm up and you finally had gone through all those steps, and we finally bring the mouthpiece and the horn into it, you want to make sure that your aperture is as open as possible in the mid register without losing control of the instrument. You've heard Bobby Shue say, play with an open aperture. This is my interpretation of what he meant. In the mid register, make sure you're nice and wide open without losing control of the instrument, because you can go too open. But make sure you find out where you're, by the way, this is the embouchure, the hole in the middle. It's not a round hole, it's actually a slit. It's a horizontal slit. That's your aperture. That's where the vibrations happen, you know. So again, check it. We'll put a nice vibrato on it. Give it a shot. Taking that same full breath. Take a breath. This is a wind instrument. Breathe. Nice full breath, and find the core of your middle C. Now, one thing I'll tell you, and when I get students come over to my house, and if I see that they play with their tuning side way out, right away I say, they're probably pinching, because pinching causes you to play sharp, right? So after you do this on a second line G and on a middle C, and you find the middle of that note, only then do you tune to the oboe player in an orchestra, or the piano player in a big band, or a recording date. Only then, after you have found your pitch center, do you tune your instrument to wherever that piano is set, okay?
Sometimes, like when you're setting like you have your tuner and you're setting it, and then subconsciously you're doing almost that where you're sort of going up or down to try to hit the center, but that's not always necessarily tuning. Where's the happy medium between actually?
Well, you find the center of your note, and then put your tuner in front of you, just like that's when you tune with the oboe player, or that's when you tune to the piano. And then depending on the tuner, then you adjust your slide.
Okay.
That's what the tuning slide is for. But you want to find the center of your note. You know, it's a funny thing. In order to go flat and sharp, you do it by lowering your jaw and raising your jaw. To go flat, you lower your jaw. And to go sharp, you bring your jaw together and your teeth together. I took a lesson with Roy Stevens during the 70s, and he said, you know, the optimal place, the optimal distance your teeth should be apart is about the measurement of where a pencil is, about like this. Huh? That's where your teeth should be when you play. Well, a pencil's width. And sure enough, every single time I find the core of that note in the mid-register, that's about a pencil. All right? So keep that in mind too. Now, it's not definitive for everybody. There's exceptions to every rule. Cat Anderson used to play with his teeth together. You know, there's exceptions to every rule. I'm speaking in general terms, so when I'm speaking to a group of trumpet players, I can help you. And like generally speaking, that's about the distance your teeth should be, okay? So now, we got that. Do it on the middle C again. Take that nice breath. But do you see how I have a nice open sound in that mid-register? All right, now do this for me. Play a little bit. How many people know the chromatic scale? Play a chromatic scale with that open position. Go ahead, take a nice full breath, and randomly just do what you want. So now, that's where I end my warm-up. Right, I'll do some glissandos just to see how my range is feeling for today. I'll go like... and I'll just slowly start ascending. Up to a high G. I'll just see how my chops are feeling for today. And it brings me to the next part of my clinic that I wanted to talk to you about. When I get students who come to me and usually they want to know how they can improve their range. And I've noticed over the years that there's certain notes where there's hurdles. The first one is getting past the high C, right? The second one is getting past the high E, right? You ever notice that? And the next one is getting past the high G. Those seem to be the hurdles. And I figured something out a few years ago. When I do, when I go up and I do these glissandos, I want you to count the partials with me. This one, middle C to high C. How many notes is that? 5. The C sharp. D. E flat. And E. Below C sharp, it's the 5 partial zone. So what do you think F is? 7 partials, right? That's why that's a hurdle, because you're going into the added partial zone. After a high C, it becomes 6 partials. You go into a different zone. Here's F. All right, it's 7. F sharp. Right, G is 7. Right? So what do you think G sharp is going to be? Not 8. 9.
Yes.
There is no 8 partial zone. It goes from 7 to 9. All right?
It's a huge step.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about this? And that zone is where your G sharp, A, B flat, B, and double C live. They live in the 9 partial zone. And I've had a lot of pros come to me who've been working for years and they got a nice high G, but they can't seem to get that A.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, it's not the A you're having problems with, it's getting to the G sharp and then living in that zone. So I said, count the partials before you go up and try to lock in where you think the A is, because you may be trying to lock the wrong partial. You understand? Right? The B flat. Right? That's all in the 9 partial zone. So if you think you're having problems locking in your A, count the partials before you go up there and make sure it's number 9. Because you might have been trying to lock in number 8. Right? I've helped a lot of people this way. Say, you're not even trying to lock the right partial yet. That's why you can't find it. Go ahead.
Roger, I have a quick question in that regard. So you say A and B flat are the 9th partial. What happens if someone has, say someone has a great A, but not such a great B flat? I'm asking for a friend, of course, but you know what I mean. Like, so if they're on the same partial series, is that more of a harmonic issue?
Everybody has bad notes.
Well, yes, sir. Most of mine are.
And every single trumpet player I've ever known, some of the greatest pros, they got a bad slot.
Yep.
And it's because of the thumbprint I said of your particular teeth, the thickness of your lips, your facial muscle structure. Everybody has a bad note.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you what mine are. I have some bad notes too, but I've learned how to control them, first of all, by knowing what partial zone they were in, and then just working on it.
Cool.
There was this great lead trumpet player, and he passed away a number of years ago. His name was Joe Davis. And I was getting ready to go on tour with Maynard Ferguson's band, and there was this one tune called Night in Tunisia, where in the beginning we had to go into this double beat. And I couldn't slot a double beat to save my life. And we'd go, oh, 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 oh. And I ran into Joe Davis. We were both living in Los Angeles at the time, and I said to Joe, I said, "Man, what are the problems doing?" He said, "Just keep banging away at it. That's all. That's all you can do. Just keep banging away at it." And for a week before I went on tour, I sat at home, and I kept on attempting that double beat every 10 minutes, and then I'd take a break, and I'd come back, and by the time that tour came, I knew where my double beat was, right? But you first of all have to know what zone it's in. That gives you a fighting chance. And then it just depends on your general makeup, what mouthpiece you're playing, or whatever. I'm not completely warmed up right now either, but they're starting to open up for me. sharp, and D. All right? And I'm just warming up, they're starting to open up for me. But I know that all those notes live in that 9 parcel zone. Okay? So it's something for you to think about.
Yeah.
Once again, when you go false fingering F sharp, those are 5 parcels to make that octave. False fingering G. Right? 2 and 3. And I'm not talking about using the proper fingerings for up there. I'm talking about the 7 bugles theory of just pushing the vowels down and playing those parcels. This is going to help you find those upward notes, okay? 5, 5, 5, 6. I know a lot of players who can play up to a great E, for the life of them, they can't go into that F. That's because there's an added partial.
So I don't know if you get to it or not, but what's going on then with your aperture as you're going and expanding the?
Well, that's a good question. Great question. Now, you've heard Bobby Shue say play with open aperture. But, and Bobby knows too. As you ascend, the way physics works, the aperture gets slightly smaller as you ascend, right? Just like when I'm going, I use less air. That's air. But there's no aperture here. Now we're dealing with a brass instrument, which is a weird thing. All right, so with that same concept of that kind of air control, as you ascend, your aperture gets slightly smaller. But you gotta try to you gotta fight to keep it as open as you can so you get that kind of a singing note up there rather than doing a falsetto like, ooh. That's not the way I sound when I play a lead. I sound like, right? So the aperture gets smaller as you ascend and it gets bigger as you descend. But slightly, not pinched and all tight when you ascend, just slightly smaller, and it's working in conjunction with the air you're putting behind it and how you arch your tongue. The reason why you get tired in these corners, your embouchure muscles control your aperture. And as you play, depending on what direction the music is going in, your aperture is constantly getting bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller. So eventually these muscles get tired, because these are the muscles that control the sides. Now, this is why I say, after we've done our buzzing and our flapping and putting the mouthpiece up there and free buzzing and the mouthpiece buzzing, and you finally play a note on the trumpet in the mid-register. I've been playing for 57 years, and every day I still check to make sure that I'm hitting the core of those mid-register notes. Because the mid-register, listen, the mid-register is the launching pad for the upper register notes. Okay? If you're pinched, here's a trumpet player who's playing small and pinched in the mid-register, right? There's their aperture. Here's the player with a nice open aperture and getting core of their note. If they are to ascend at the same rate of speed, who's going to shut off first? That's why playing pinched in the mid-register is the first thing that's going to prevent you from ever building any type of range. You have to make sure that your aperture is as open as possible in the mid-register without losing control of the instrument, because at some point it's going to shut off on you. With me, it eventually shuts off on an E above double C. With John Faddis, it shuts off at about a triple C. I mean, for somebody, it's gonna shut off. But I think reasonably, any trumpet player who has figured out how to do this should be able to play a high G, and a high G is all you really need to be a good, proficient lead trumpet player. Remember, the only people who care about high notes are other trumpet players. Contractors and record producers and band leaders don't really care about high notes unless it's Harry Connick Jr. He cared a lot about high notes. He wrote a lot of them for me. But in general, for the local work I do now, after being on the road for 35 years, I met Victoria and I moved to Chicago, and I enjoy just working locally. Most people don't really care about notes above a high G. Most big band books, it's good to have an A, but I think reasonably speaking, if you can just build a nice high G and be able to own it and all the notes below, then you're gonna be successful. The first time I ever went to London was in 1979. I was playing lead trumpet with Tom Jones. I started working with Tom Jones when I was 18. Right after high school, Quincy Jones called me. I went on a tour with him, and then after that, I got hired with Johnny Spence, who was a conductor for Tom Jones at the time, hired me to go out with Tom Jones. And at that time, and he's passed away now, one of the greatest trumpet players of all time was Derek Watkins, and he was the first college studio trumpet player in London. He played lead trumpet on all the James Bond films and a whole bunch of other stuff. The thing is that he used to tour with Tom Jones too. He was the very first trumpet player that Tom would carry with him because he did the records with Tom in London. And then Tom started carrying Derek to play lead, and then eventually Derek left the tour because he got too busy in London. And then Bobby Shue took over, and he toured with Tom Jones for a little bit. And then Bobby got busy doing other things, and then Keith Jordan took over playing lead with Tom Jones. And then he got busy. There was a big studio scene in Dallas at the time, and so then I got hired. And Terry Jenkins was the drummer on the band at the time, and Terry Jenkins and Derek Watkins were childhood friends. And Derek wasn't on the tour anymore, but Terry started telling him about this young kid who came on playing lead trumpet. So Derek said, well, when you get to London, bring him over, and we'll go to the pub and have a few pints, and I'd like to meet him, you know. So we get to London, and I go to the pub, and by the way, Terry Jenkins and Derek Watkins made me an honorary Englishman that night, but I had to drink a certain amount of tea. And I qualified. But during that conversation, invariably, Derek and I started talking about trumpet playing. And he said, Roger, he says, all the notes below low C, that's the low register. And all the notes above a high C, that's the high register. And then he said, and all the notes between low C and high C, that's the cash register.
Yes, sir.
That's where you make most of your money. Like I said, the only people who care about high notes are the trumpet players. Most of the jingles I do, most of the commercial dates I do, everything is in the Arbin book range. The Arbin book goes from low F sharp, basically the high C. I think maybe there's a D in it somewhere. But basically that's the orthodox range for a B flat trumpet. Anything above a high C in many circles is considered unorthodox. So you have to start looking at it and analyzing it and studying the partials and your aperture and getting control of your air. Now, the last thing, and we're here for about an hour,
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is what the tongue does, right? And it's not all aperture, it's not all air, it's not all tongue arch, it's the combination of those, the coordinated effort of all three of those things that makes your range start to happen if you're starting with an open aperture in the mid-register. Everything is developed in the mid-register. Everything is developed in that Arbin's book register. Any problems you have in the upper register, 9 times out of 10, they're solved by straightening them out in the mid-register. It's something you did wrong in the mid-register, okay? What the tongue does, see if you can do this. Make that noise. Now, where are you arching your tongue to make that noise?
Back.
In the back. So, when I ascend on glissandos, and glissandos are a great way to search and discover, because you're starting from a familiar, comfortable place in the mid-register, and you slide through the parcels, and you slide back down, and you can go up there and you can wobble around until you start finding these notes. The glissando is a beautiful thing. So when I go up on these glissandos, my tongue is going, and I'm increasing the airspeed, and I'm slightly decreasing the size of my aperture. Not so much that I sound pinched or playing with a falsetto, but it does get slightly smaller. So my tongue is going when I do. E. G. My tongue is going. Okay? That's what's happening with the tongue. Right? Yeah.
I think we're unfortunately out of time. So,
Okay.
but everybody, please, everybody online and here, please give an amazing gratitude, Roger. That was just such an amazing session. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you got something out of it.
We sure did. So.
Because I can sit here and pontificate until I turn blue.
Well, we want you, but you're teaching all afternoon,
But,
so it's like.
I have a lot of students, and I've had a lot of students for decades, and what I've addressed are common problems I've seen with students, and I want you to become the best trumpet player you possibly can. So give yourself a round of applause for being involved in music and the arts.
Thank you again, Roger.
Thank you very much.
And anybody who's online, I've hit plenty of links on Roger's site. Check out
And,
that book. It's unbelievably good.
You go to my website, rogeringham.com, and you go to the menu at the top of the page, you click the book, and you can get one of these books.
Yeah.
My musician band page, I have 19,000 followers. On my personal profile, I'm full at 5,000. But I'm active on social media. I also have a music products page.
Yep, we've
which
already
has
linked it.
significantly less followers. But you know, I'm out there and I'm trying to disseminate good information for brass players, and I just want to help you be a better player.
Thank you again,
All right,
Roger.
thank
Thank you.